blood-curdling scream coming from the barn. I was suddenly filled with a kind of intense dread. I just felt this hand. I have never in my life been that frightened.
So many strange things started taking place. All I saw was a silhouette of a person just moving. I started hearing footsteps and ran out the house. I called, said, don't come back to the house. There's ghosts in the house.
The light above us explodes. I mean, poof. And I felt cold wind. It felt like somebody was there in the room with me. I freaked out. Yeah, let's get out of this room.
It comes to me very, very easily, those feelings of absolute terror of going into that building. What I had experienced was something genuine, something evil, something malevolent, something that meant me harm. In the late 1950s, my father bought an old rundown farmhouse in mid-Maine. He was an abstract expressionist painter. He painted the landscape, and the landscape of Maine was completely what he had been looking for. The house had been uninhabited for well over 25 years. It was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the closest access to any road was over a mile away. We spent our summers there, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place. There was one outbuilding, which was a barn, sort of your classic New England barn. It was quite large, and it was open in the loft, exposed up to the top with beams. My father chose the barn as his studio. And my father had his palette there and his table with all of his colors and his canvases, and there really wasn't much else in there. Maybe some firewood. My brother and I were not allowed to play in his studio, and we were not allowed to go into his studio without his presence. That was his workspace, and it needed to be treated with respect. That was my father's rule. We had some friends visiting one summer. I was about 9. And we liked to play in the dark, flashlight tag, other things like that. So we were running around having a good time. One of my friends, when he heard us coming, he fled and went around and went inside of the barn, unbeknownst to us. I remember trying to find my friend.
Where are you?
We hear this blood-curdling scream coming from the barn. This scream was that of someone being seriously injured. It was my friend. And he came running, hysterical. It looked as if all the blood had been drained from his body. It was like he was having some sort of a seizure. Shaking, screaming, crying. He was literally white as a sheet. I remember trying to find some sort of an injury on him and trying to calm him down. My father and the other adults came out of the house. After we were able to calm him down, he said he went into the barn.
There's giggling.
And he started to hear giggling.
Someone took grabbed me.
and then he was violently grabbed. But there was nobody in the barn with him. The boy would not stay. And they had to leave. Those people never came back. It was at that point I realized that there was something wrong with that barn. I just put into place the practice that I only went into that barn during the daytime, and I kept the door wide open. One day, my brother and I were gonna go and ride our motorcycles. I was about 10 years old. At that point, my father had moved us to the house in Maine, and we were living there full time, and it was pretty austere. So we were sort of packing up kind of a picnic lunch or some water and some food and things to bring. And my father went out to his studio. My father came storming into the kitchen, and he seemed to be excessively angry. What's the rule? And he said, "What's the rule? What's the rule?" He was shouting at my brother and I, "What's the rule about the studio? You guys were in there messing around with my stuff." Of course, I said, "It wasn't me," and my brother, of course, said, What do you mean?" And we're going, "Well, what are you talking about?" My father said, "Come out here, I want you to see this and look at this." So we went out to the barn.
Come on.
Tubes of paint had been squirted out, and they were stomped on with a serious kind of force. The brushes had been sort of shaken out across one of his canvases. It was an enormous 9-foot by 6-foot blank canvas. Because it was very low to the ground, you could see a child had done this. It chilled me, and my brother looked petrified. My brother and I both swore up and down that we didn't do it.
What is it?
I swear we didn't do it. We were inside the house.
Never come in here at night. Never come in here at night.
We were instructed by my father not to go in there at night.
Never come in here at night. Never. Come on, let's go.
It was never an issue of whether I would go into that barn at night, and certainly not after the incident that occurred with the boy, and later with myself.
Never come in here at night. Never.
We were instructed by my father not to go in there at night.
Come on, let's go.
It was never an issue of whether I would go into that barn at night, and certainly not after the incident that occurred with the boy, and later with myself, sometime in the wintertime. It was a particularly cold day, and we heated the house entirely with wood, which meant there were massive wood boxes, and they had to be stocked. My job was to keep them stocked at all times. And the firewood was stored in the barn. And it was a particularly cold day, and the fires, we'd just burn up more wood than usual. And I kind of said, I didn't want to go out and deal with it, but now it was dark. I've got to reload, some of the boxes before we go to bed. And I knew that I did not want to go into that barn at night, but I had to do it. I had 2 canvas carriers, and I had a flashlight that I sat on some old wooden crates so I could see what I was taking off, and began to load them. And I thought I heard a sound. maybe the wind, because it was blowing quite hard that night. And then it kind of changed, and it went from that kind of sound of the wind to more of like a... And I was suddenly filled with a kind of intense dread, and the hair kind of went up on the back of my neck. Because I realized what I was hearing was like a whispering. And what I really needed to do was to get that wood and get out of there as quickly as I could. The volume of the whispering, the intensity of the whispering became very aggressive. And I remember picking the flashlight up and kind of looking around the room. Really, where it was most audible was the crossbeam, the center crossbeam. And then it moved from that to giggling. It was not friendly. It was not the sound of joy, of children playing and having a good time. It was threatening. I was petrified. And the giggling became louder and louder and louder. All of a sudden, the sound was no longer confined to the crossbeam. I was completely enveloped in the kind of sound. It was all around me. I was completely surrounded. Now it was behind me. Suddenly, I just felt this hand, this upon me, something pulling me. I was terrified. I have never in my life been that frightened. And I ran. I ran for my life out of that barn. I sort of convinced myself that my brother had been doing this, and this was him playing some kind of a nasty trick on me to scare me. I ran into the house, completely hysterical, crying, screaming, and I began to yell and rant about my brother like a crazy person.
It was Silas! It was Silas! It was Silas! He tricked me! He was in the bar!
Okay.
He scared me!
Your brother is in the living room.
My father put his arms firmly on my shoulder and he said, "Your brother is in the living room and has not left the living room since you left this house."
I understand. I understand.
At that point, my father admitted his own fear of the building. It was the first time I ever saw any kind of vulnerability in my father's face, and it frightened me.
Never come in here at night. I understand.
And that's when it really brought it home to me. There was no trickery involved. So what was it? What was it? My father was concerned. He began to sort of investigate around, ask questions of some of the local people. He went to the man that he had bought the house from, who was now a very, very, very elderly man. He told my father that the people that had owned the house prior to us, some 30 years before, it was a man and his wife, a couple of boys, and a girl. They lived a very, very austere life. It was a man who was a preacher. This man one evening had a premonition that the world was going to come to an end. And so he drugged his wife and his children so that they were incapacitated, and then took them one by one up into the loft and onto the crossbeam. And hung them, and then hung himself. The idea that a person would be so insane that they could do that was so abhorrent and so evil. That was the malevolence that emanated from that structure. Perhaps those children, their inability to be able to cross over was inhibited by their father, who was such an evil entity. The giggling was not the giggling of children released from the burden of life on Earth. And that barn really ostensibly just became sort of a warehouse for unused things, broken machinery, but it was never used again as a studio. It was never used again as a place to play. It remains there today. In fact, our house burnt to the ground entirely, leaving nothing left but the barn.
I didn't believe that there was such thing as ghosts until I actually had my encounter, which was just an experience that I don't think I'll ever forget. When I was about 16, my friend Ralph invited me to come out to LA, and I met this lady who owned the house that he was staying in. Her name was Alicia, and she had 2 houses, and she lived most of the time in Las Vegas. I remember telling her how much I loved LA, and she offered me an opportunity to live at the house because she had extra room. So I took her up on the offer. A few days later, Alicia decided to go back to Las Vegas. Later that night, I go to bed, and my room was on the left wing of the house, and Ralph's room was on the right wing of the house. I started hearing footsteps. This had to have been like maybe about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm assuming, you know, Ralph must have just came on the other side to use the bathroom on my side. So I didn't think nothing of it. Went back to sleep. Woke up, and I asked him, you know, why did you come all the way over my side to use the bathroom? And he says, I didn't come over on your side of the house. So I'm thinking he's just joking. The next day, hear these footsteps again. I jumped up and I said, okay, I'm gonna catch him. So I opened the door and I looked. There was nothing there, nobody. I didn't fall back to sleep right away. The next day, I was talking to Ralph and I said, you know, I'm hearing footsteps. Again, I thought it was you. And he said, I told you, I don't come over that side. I'm like, okay, maybe I was just tripping. So Ralph and I decided to set up a studio in the house. And so many strange things started taking place. One night, we was recording. And after I'd finished up recording the vocals, we played the song back, and there was this sound. It was this crazy, weird, echoey sound, and we both looked at each other, and then we played it back again. It disappears. I stopped, I looked at Ralph, and he looked at me, and we both kind of snuck our shoulders at each other like, that was strange. A few days later, we was working so late, I fell asleep in the studio. And I hear footsteps. And the footsteps were light at first, and then they got heavier, and I still didn't see anybody. And I jumped up, and I opened up the door, and the footsteps were still going, and they got heavier and heavier. And I almost defecated on myself. I ran over to Ralph's room and knocked on Ralph's door. Ralph! I said, yo, there's somebody in here. I said, I didn't see anybody, but just footsteps going back and forth, back and forth. He goes, maybe you're just hearing things. And I'm like, dude, I'm not crazy. I'm starting to really have concerns, but I'm trying not to show fear. And both of us are still trying to act like it doesn't exist, like there's no way this could possibly be. So, you know, I calmed down, and we went on with our normal routines and got right back into our recording the next night. And so later that night, we recorded a whole song. And Ralph said, okay, we'll mix it in the morning. Well, woke up the next day and got ready to pull it up to mix it. Whole song was gone. It was really odd. And this happened like a couple of times. And so we're sitting here going, what the heck? So I would always have to go back and re-record whatever parts that I was doing with the songs. And when I had to record a certain line over again or a certain verse over again, it would be good, but it would become greater. And I truly believe the music that we were making was just incredible. It was like just magical. Got up the next morning, Ralph had an appointment, and so he had to leave. I was in the bathroom taking a shower. And I had the door open. And all of a sudden, I was in the bathroom taking a shower. And I had the door open. And all of a sudden, the door just slammed shut. I'm already on edge. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna freak out. I'm not gonna freak out. I dried myself off. I went and I checked the studio and I opened up the door. And all I saw was a silhouette of a person just moving. And it was just going back, it was going forth. And I shut the door, grabbed my phone, ran out the house, and I jumped in my car and I called Ralph and said, don't come back to the house. There's somebody in the house, there's a ghost in the house. He goes, calm down, calm down. And I said, I'm not going back to the house until you get there. And he goes, I'm on my way back to the house. We went and walked through all the rooms, and there was nothing there. Nothing there. It was the freakiest thing that I'd ever experienced in my life. So about an hour later, I called Alicia in Las Vegas, and I remember telling her, there's somebody in the house, there's a ghost in the house is what I said. And so she said, it must be Andy. And I'll never forget, she started telling me the stories about her husband. Alicia was married to a guy by the name of Andy Rosoff, and he died many years ago, but Andy was like the Quincy Jones of his era. He was a genius. He wrote so many classic records. And Andy made a lot of music out of this house. Looking back at it, you could tell that this house was really special and unique because there was an energy that was in that house that only a musician could have created this atmosphere. I really honestly believe that we were being produced from the grave by Andy. I mean, we made so many great songs in that house, and I think that without a doubt, hands down, Andy was involved. Because one thing about great musicians and people that are passionate about their music and about their art, their influence is always around some kind of way. You can't get around it. And when that one song disappeared, meant one thing and one thing only, Andy wasn't feeling it. And I think in some strange way he was, and he is, and has been a part of who I am today. As an artist and as a musician.
So before, when I was younger, you know, I didn't know what to think about paranormal activity. I was really kind of skeptic, but After this experience in this hotel, 1993, it completely changed my mind. I'm positive that there is paranormal activity. So, January 1993, I had just done the Calvin Klein campaign a year and a half earlier. I came out, it was my big break in modeling, and started working more and more, pretty much every day, all around the world. I was in New York, got a phone call from my agent for a big shoot in Los Angeles, so I flew in from New York to LA. Went to my hotel on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, where they had booked me a nice suite. It was still kind of early in my modeling career, and I was feeling good and ready to rock and roll. That evening, I had some friends come over to the hotel, ordered some pizza, reminiscing about old times. Had a great time, was in a great mood. But eventually, around 11:30, they went home. Shortly thereafter, I went to bed around midnight. I fell asleep pretty fast. Was in a deep sleep. Then, all of a sudden, the phone rings. I don't think I ever heard a phone ring so loud. Picked up the phone. Hello? Hello? Nobody there. Hung up the phone. So I tried to sleep again. And a few minutes later, the phone rings again, really loud. Pick up the phone. Hello? Nobody there. So I called the reception and said, I was a little pissed off, honestly. And they said, we haven't got any calls for you. Strange. A third time. And I got this eerie feeling, like goosebumps on my skin, and I don't know why, but it felt like somebody was for sure on the other line, but they wouldn't say anything.
Why are you doing this? I can hear you.
Hung up the phone and told myself, it's nothing. I really need to sleep. I need to be fresh tomorrow. So I tried to go back to sleep again. I really need to sleep. I need to be fresh tomorrow. So I tried to go back to sleep again. All of a sudden, I felt almost like a cold wind. The room got so cold all of a sudden. It felt like somebody was there in the room with me. I looked around, couldn't see anything. And then this this woman appears. It's a thin air. I don't know how, but I freaked out. She was totally white, old lady, gray long hair, wearing like drapes, almost like a cut-up sheet or something. She's walking around the bed. I'm freaking out. I'm not moving. I'm lying there. She sat down on the edge of my bed. I just lay there and waited to see what would happen next. She was kind of staring by me, not straight at me. She looked kind of sad. And then all of a sudden, she's gone. It was crazy. 1 minute she's there, and next minute she's completely disappeared. I was so exhausted at that point, eventually I fell asleep. Woke up pretty early in the morning. A friend of mine, Robert, came over. We were gonna go have breakfast together. He came up to my room. I told my friend the story, what had happened during the night, and he couldn't believe it. And I said, yeah, let's get out of this room. I don't want to be here anymore. And so I packed up my stuff pretty fast. So we walk out of the room, walk down the hallway, and we're kind of joking about this ghost. My friend is making fun of me, oh, the ghost is gonna get you. And all of a sudden, the light above us explodes. I mean, poof! A second later, the door right in front of us just slams. It was like somebody took both hands and slammed it. And we just looked at each other. We couldn't believe what was going on. I was glad I was not a couple of feet further ahead. We would have got slammed in between the door. It was a big, thick door, too, and it could have done some damage. We were talking about this ghost, making jokes about it, and all of a sudden, this happens. It seemed like this ghost, it pissed her off. I almost thought, I'm going crazy, like from what happened the night before, but now my friend was with me. There was two of us, and he experienced this with me as well. And after that, we hurried down to the lobby, and I checked out, and I was really happy to be out of the hotel at that point. Later that day, on the shoot, I'm telling a couple of people about the experience I had, and someone on the crew overheard me and told me they knew about the hotel and that there had been an old lady there. She lived there as a resident before they did a renovation, and she didn't want to move.
Miss Ragazzi, help me. Miss Ragazzi, I have to get this. The building is sold, Miss Ragazzi. You have to leave. Miss Ragazzi, you have to leave.
And she was really upset and pissed off about them turning her home into a modern, new hotel.
Miss Ragazzi. Miss Ragazzi.
Apparently, somehow she died before they finished, and guess she maybe never moved out. I think the reason why she was there, that was a place where she used to live, and I was in her space. Maybe she still was upset and wanted to disturb people that came into her home. If I would have known, I would definitely have picked another room or another hotel, but I won't go back to that room or that hotel.
Celebrity ghost stories.
There was something about that home, some type of being. What can you do? Accept it? Will it be threatening towards us? Will it be violent towards us? This thing scared me.
We had gone to stay with some friends of my father. There was something just off about it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was just something not quite right. I couldn't quite make out the face. And I'm freaking out.
Suddenly, there was this really bright light, like the roof had come off the building. And then it began to shake, and it was like being in an earthquake. And I looked up.
So we go inside this house. All right, this is just a house. I'm with a group of people. And we get up to the second floor. All of the lights turn on. Lamps that are there just for show. I mean, these are like old gas lamps. I turn around and I run.
I'm a tough guy. I'm afraid of no man. But what if you can't do anything to the thing you're seeing? There was something there. I heard it. I felt it. And this thing scared me. My girlfriend Jenna owned a house in Hollywood Hills. We moved in the Hollywood home at the end of 2006. It took about 3 or 4 months after we got settled into the home. Walking in the house itself, there's a staircase that goes from the bottom floor all the way up to the top level of the house. And at the end of the staircase, on the top, it's a huge bookcase. About 7 feet tall, 4 feet wide. It's heavy. And you grab the bookshelf and you pull it, and it opens like a normal door. I've never seen anything like that before. There was one time that I had to go up there just to move a couple things around. I walked up the stairs, opened the door, and you kind of had to walk across the room to turn on the light. And as I walked to the light, kind of get that feeling that almost like someone is behind you, walking behind you. And moved over a couple things that Jen asked me to move around. And I was done, and I had to turn the light off before I left the room. I turned the light off, and I heard a slam. The bookcase was actually shut. And that bookcase itself, I mean, it's 50, 60 pounds. It's a big door. And I was like, Jenna? I got no answer. I walked up to the door, opened the door, and there was nothing there. All right, now that was weird. What did that? About a week or so after that incident happened, something happened to Jenna. I was in the living room watching television, Jen was watching television with me. She got up to go to the bathroom. And I hear a slam. Tito. And I got up super quick and I ran to the bathroom. The door went open. And I grabbed the handle and I went to go push and it wouldn't budge. Is it locked? She goes, no, there's no lock in here. The light won't turn on. Can you please open the door? And I literally had to push all my weight. And the light was turned off. I go, why don't you turn the light on? She goes, it won't go on. And I go to click it on, it wouldn't go on. And she looked at me and she was just like, Tito, I'm telling you, I tried to open the door and this light won't turn on. And as soon as she said the light won't turn on, the light flickered back on. She looked at me, white as a ghost. She goes, what is that? I was like, Jenna, I don't know. There was just a few occasions she started saying that there was things that she was hearing, and she got feelings of people, you know, or a person watching her. She was hearing footsteps. As situations started happening more and more, just thinking in my head, and how many more times is this gonna happen? A couple weeks go by. I was sitting on the couch, just watching the show. I feel like someone's staring at me, and I knew there was no one home. And you get that really goosebump feeling, almost like a chill feeling. And it's not cold in the house. I mean, it's afternoon in the summertime. And I look up just at the corner of my eye, and I could see almost like a shadow of a person. Just kind of like someone swaying on their toes back and forth like this. I'm just watching. I got up super quick, and I looked. There was nothing there, and I was like, okay, that's for surely somebody. That has to be someone there. Jenna came home, and I go, I seen something. She goes, what do you mean you seen something? I go, I seen a shadow. There was somebody staring at me, watching me, watch TV. Then I started questions like, Jenna, do you really want to live here? She's like, of course, this is my home. I was like, all right, because I don't really like this that much. There was something about that home. There was someone, some type of being or something that was in that home that was trying to let us know that they wanted to be recognized, that they were there. Another week goes by, and it was around 1, 2 a.m., right before I went to sleep. All of a sudden, we hear someone walking up the stairs. I go, do you hear that? She goes, yes, I hear that. The home alarm would have automatically gone off, but it come to the front door. And we heard this, and she looked at me. She goes, you heard that? And I go, I heard that. She goes, someone is in the home. And it was step, 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 and it stopped right at the door. And it was step, 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 and it stopped right at the door. Open the door as quick as I can, and no one was there. I hear it again. But now it's coming from up the stairs. Who's there?
Who's there?
No answer. Started walking. And as soon as I turned to the corner, I looked and I seen a shadow. It was a man. I could actually kind of see the outline of the person. And it was so much going like this and feeling startled. He was, 5'10", 6 foot. It seemed like a long time. And disappeared right into the bookcase, almost like vaporized. I feel like almost in shock. I walked back down and I walked in and Jenna's like, what is it? What is it? What is it? I'm all, I don't know. There's something here. I go, I saw that figure I keep seeing. She's like, okay, this might be enough for me. I go, so you want to think about moving back down to Huntington? She goes, yeah. After that incident happened, Jenna started asking questions about the home. She started asking around. And then she started going online. She started looking up the address of the house. That room with the bookshelf door. That room was a so-called prohibition room, when alcohol was illegal and people would store it in this part of the house, or they would drink in this part of the house so no one could ever find it. And comes to find out, actually, there was a person who committed suicide in the home. The prohibition room was the same room that the body was found. And I started thinking, is this the person? Was this person trying to scare us away to kind of get us out of the home? Or was this person trying to just let us know that we're in their home? This being or ghost or whatever you call it that was in that home, will it be threatening towards us? Will it be violent towards us? What can you do? Accept it and live with it? Or move? We bought a house down on Huntington Beach and we moved down there, and from that point out on, I never want to step back in that house. I never stepped back in that house.
I would have to say that I think once you've seen something that you can't explain, it's not like you share that with a lot of people. It all seems like a kind of a fun idea until you're really faced with that moment. And that event is now a part of you. It's part of who you are. In 1975, I was about 13 years old. I was in Spain with my father and my two brothers, and we had gone to stay with some friends of my father who were renting a castle. It was a 13th century castle. And that seemed very exciting, especially for a young kid. When we pulled up in my father's car to the castle, I remember thinking how huge this place was. It was massive. But I remember feeling when I got there, there was something just off about it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was just something not quite right. I remember playing with the kids of the family that were living there, and dinner around a big table. And just as dinner was ending, I hear a very distant rumbling of a storm coming in from way off. There's something about storms in Spain that you should know. When a storm comes in, it literally goes from daytime to nighttime within minutes. As soon as the weather changed, the lighting changed, and within seconds, there was a downpour. Just as everyone was sort of talking about that, all the electricity went out. And I remember the mother of the family showing up instantly with candles and matches. Suddenly, dinner was over. It was time for bed. I remember seeing my brothers being led to a room that they were going to share. And I remember thinking, gosh, I'd love to stay with them. Why can't we all just sleep in one room? But there just wasn't room. They had designated one room for an extra guest, which was this other room on the other side of the castle, across the courtyard. My father, I think he thought the idea of running across the courtyard in the rain was exciting. And he took his coat off and put it over my head, and he said, I'm gonna count to 3, and then we're gonna run. And he still had the candle in one hand, and he was holding my hand with the other. And he counted to 3, and we ran. I look up. I could just make out the other side of the courtyard. This figure, this silhouette. I thought, I'm scared, it's a storm. Maybe it was your imagination. And we made it to the other side, and he opened a door to a little hallway. He pulled out some matches out of his pocket, and he relit the candle. And then he opened another door, which led to a very small, little, tiny bedroom. As soon as I went into the room, the first strike of lightning happened, and it lit up the room. And it was filled with boxes and crates and old paintings, portraits that were pretty scary right there. I knew instantly I just didn't want to be there. In the corner was a little tiny cot. My father tucked me in, and he said, you know, are you scared? And I said, a little bit. He said, well, you know, you can do that thing where you count after the thunder, and you count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. And when you count between the claps of thunder, you will see that the storm is going away, and that will help calm you. And so that seemed a reasonable idea at the time. I thought, okay, I can handle that. And he put the candle down, and he closed the door behind him. And I thought, I'm not putting that candle out. Just as I started counting, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, a clap of thunder hit. I mean, it was bam, powerful. And I thought, okay, possibly it's going away. I'll count again. 1, 1,000, 2. Shook the entire building. The loudest thunderclap I've ever heard in my life. I pulled the covers of the sheets up close to my neck and started to count again, and I just got to 1, 1,000. I didn't even finish 1, 1,000. And there was a sudden smash. A gust of wind blew the window open. It was like out of a movie. And the rain and the wind poured in and completely extinguished the candle. Now I'm in darkness, and I'm scared. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, get the matches, get the candle lit, close the window. You can do that. So I'm fumbling for the matches in the darkness. And as I'm about to strike them, I could feel something in the room. I could feel another presence. And I see a silhouette in the window. And I'm thinking, oh, my father's there. He came to get me. As I looked again, I realized this figure wasn't moving. I couldn't quite make out the face. And just as I was thinking that, who is that? There was another flash of lightning. I see a silhouette. As I looked again, I realized this figure wasn't moving. I couldn't quite make out the face. And just as I was thinking, who is that? There was another flash of lightning. It was not my father. It was a skeleton. He was literally this far away from me. He had chainmail on. His clothes were all tattered and they were blowing in the wind. And in one of his hands, he was carrying an old spear. And I'm freaking out. I'm scrambling for the door. I managed to find the door handle, and I flung open the door, and I ran out through that courtyard in the rain. Now I'm not even sure my bearings because I'm so terrified. I don't really know which door. There's several doors in the courtyard. I pick one where I can see some candlelight through a window, and I just sprinted, screaming for help. And I find my father and the parents of the kids I was playing with. They're completely stupefied by my presence there. I'm soaking wet. I'm totally inconsolable. And I couldn't even explain to them. I couldn't even get my breath. My father, he wanted to take me back to my room, and I remember saying, no, there's no way. I don't care where you put me. I am not going back there. I knew the meaning of absolute fear. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I told my father the next day, I told him what happened. I told him what I saw, and he kind of laughed it off. He said, no, you were scared, you fell asleep, and you probably just dreamt it. And everybody kind of just laughed it off like it was no big deal. And I remember thinking, you didn't see what I saw. To this day, I wish I hadn't seen what I saw. 15, 20 years later, an Encyclopedia Britannica, I looked up what battles had taken place in this particular castle where I was staying. And I found out that a very famous battle had taken place there. The Battle of Rio Salado. And it took place in the late 14th century. Hundreds and hundreds of lives were lost. This fellow had obviously died in this battle. His spirit never left. It was trapped in that environment forever. And that's the only way I can figure it out. That event definitely formed me. Whenever I hear someone tell me a story of an event that happened to them that involves something supernatural, I'm not skeptical anymore.
When I was growing up, we didn't talk about ghosts. We never believed in ghosts. I mean, in general, I think, as a family. This is nothing that I was ever believed in or thought would happen to me. I always had wanted to be an actress, and I was lucky enough to get these 2 lines in a picture called Reform School Girl. The girl who was the star of the film, Luana. She had blonde hair and just very pretty. The minute we met, it was just a connection that didn't ever go away. We did everything together. She was a great listener, and I'm a big talker. And she would just always, go that extra mile to be a good friend. We were soulmates. So as we got older, I got married, she fell in love, and about 15 years ago, I was in Edmonton, Canada, doing a 2-character play. And my husband flew up to see me. Even working with Richard, Luana's boyfriend. Richard said that she only had a year to live, and I didn't believe it. And I said, that's not true, that's a lie, it isn't. And it turned out she had breast cancer, which her aunt and her mother had had, and indeed she did only have that year. I was at her house a lot. And one day, I brought her this little, fake jewel, little pink bow, a little clip for your hair. I was so proud she wore it. When I came the next couple of times, she'd have it in her hair. But that day she said, listen, you know, if you want to go look around the house and see if there's anything you'd like. So I did. And I saw this bowl. It was little tiny flowers. It was a bowl big enough to put fruit in. I love that bowl. And it was hers, you know, it was something that she picked out and her taste. So during this year that she was ill, I got this movie and I was shooting in Florida, in Orlando. I was staying in one of these apartment complexes. I was shooting 6 days a week, and I don't know what night it was that I fell into bed like a zombie. I don't know, just so tired, really, really tired. And I don't know what time it was, but the phone rang. And I scrambled in the dark, as one does, you know, and grabbed the phone. And said, hello. Hello? Nothing. Hello. There was nobody there. I hung up the phone. I was so mad. I lay there with my eyes closed, just so mad that I was going to actually get a full night's sleep. And suddenly, there was this bright, really bright light, like the roof had come off the building, and it was just shining down on me. And the walls of the room were like glowing. And then it began to shake and spin the room, and it felt like the building, you know, just rocking and rolling, and it was like being in an earthquake. But the biggest thing was the sound. The sound was so loud. It was like a train going through the room. And I looked up. The room began to shake, and it was like being in an earthquake. But the biggest thing was the sound. It was like a train going through the room. And I looked up. And there was Luana, lying there, just suspended, lying on her side, looking at me and smiling. She looked like she'd always looked, not like when she was sick. And I lay there, so stunned, so amazed. And she just smiled at me. And she said, "Is that cool?" Or what? And then suddenly, the phone rang. And when I looked back, she was gone. And my husband said to me that Luana had died. So, I was lying there, just amazed at what had taken place, and it was a big loss. She was like my sister, you know? I always thought we would grow old together, you know, if the husbands died, or, you know, we'd always be in each other's lives, you know, as friends. And I kept thinking that because I'd had this experience that I'd be hearing from her, you know, in my dreams, or maybe she'd come by, you know, once a month or whatever. And then nothing. Since she died, this bowl became like a connection to Luana. I mean, I didn't do this consciously, but I always was talking to Luana. And this bowl had a lot to do with it. I mean, I'd say, Luana, I'm having a party tonight, so you have to be there. And I'd come back from the market, Lou, I just got some grapes, and you'll have to have those grapes. And so I was always talking to this bowl. A few months passed. I was out singing. And when I came back, I'd gone to the market and I looked for the bowl. It wasn't there, so I asked my housekeeper. She called the girl that works for her. I asked my husband, I asked my children, and nobody'd seen the bowl. Nobody copped to it. I said, well, if you broke it, I don't care, accidents happen. But where is it? And I couldn't find it. When it really looked like it was really gone. And as corny as it is, I felt so sad losing that bowl. Damn it, I did. That night, it was just about dawn. It was just getting light out, and my eyes were closed, and then suddenly I hear this like, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And it was Luana at the foot of the bed, and I could just see her going, whoosh, 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 whoosh. It was so fast, just bam, 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 back and forth. I couldn't tell you what she was doing as she went by, and she was just so happy. And she just smiled at me. And I was so glad to see her, and then zip, right out, just whoosh. She was gone. I didn't realize it till afterwards, but I think the reason she showed up is that I was so sad when I couldn't find that bowl. I mean, I knew Luana wasn't in the bowl, but there was a connection, you know. I think in retrospect that maybe she showed up to say, I'm not in the bowl, but I am here. I haven't found the bowl, but I have my memories of Lou, and you know, maybe another 15 years she'll drop by.
I never really believed in ghosts. I grew up in a household that, you know, there's no such thing as ghosts, and I'd never had any scary situations growing up that I would think there were ghosts until I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I visited an actual haunted house. I was about 13 or 14 years old, and I was doing a film with John Cusack in Calgary, Alberta, and we were shooting at this place called Heritage Park Historical Village, which was a place where they would bring old houses that were built in the 1900s, and they would bring them here to preserve them. And you could come and walk through an old Western village or an old colonial neighborhood. And we were actually shooting on one because it was a period piece, and it was supposed to look like a Western town, so we were shooting off on their Western town. So we're shooting there for the next couple weeks, and it was a Halloween night, and we were all having a cast party at this restaurant. John mentions that he heard about this house, this haunted house. It's on the complete opposite side of where we're shooting, and I'm just amazed by this. So after that night, while we were shooting one day, they wouldn't need me on set for 2-3 hours, so I had nothing else to do. So I get my video camera, and I go down with a friend of mine, and we start videotaping this house, just to see if anything happens. There's no one in the house. The doors are all shut. The windows are all shut. And so there was nobody in the area where that house was. So we sit there. From the window of the room, which is the second floor, and the window looks right directly out. The curtains are shut. All of a sudden, from the window of the room, which is the second floor, and the window looks right directly out. The curtains are shut. All of a sudden, the curtains go. One of the sides of the curtains lifted as if someone was looking out their window to see what we were doing on their lawn. And it stayed for a solid, 3-4 seconds, and then goes back. It didn't fall back, it was drawn and then put back. So we jump up and we're just, no way, did that just happen? So we grab the video camera, we run back to my trailer, we put it on the TV, and we see the same thing happen right on the TV screen. Now I'm just, I can't get over this house. So a few nights later, we're shooting and it's a night scene, and it's about 2 in the morning, and John mentions that he wants to go check out this house. And so he had set up with the caretaker to take us on a tour of this place at night. It's me, John, 2 or 3 other people from the crew, a couple of other cast members. We're walking up, and as we go up the steps and about to go in, the caretaker's physically straining to try and get his dog to come in, and the dog has his paws forcibly, trying to stop himself from being taken into this house. So we're all looking at each other like. So we go inside this house, and the caretaker's outside with the dog, and he sort of just says, "Go ahead and go inside. We all have flashlights. There's no electricity in the house." We're going through the dining room and the first floor, the living room. We start to go upstairs, and I'm kind of, all right, this is just a house now. Nothing's really, I'm with a group of people. And we get up to this second floor, and that's where the whole mood sort of changes. This was just a different vibe once we got into that part of the house. As kind of the rest of the gang were going and checking out the rest of the place, I kind of just stayed behind, because the room where I saw the curtains lift up, there's something wasn't right about it. I walk up to the door, and the room, it looked as if it was never touched since, the 1800s. I mean, it's very, very spooky. And I look in, and as I'm about to walk in, all of the lights turn on. Lamps that are there just for show. I mean, these are like old gas lamps. And then I see this woman wearing a colonial dress. She definitely wasn't of this era. I turn around and I run. I go, let's go, let's go. So we run, so scared out of our minds, and we run to the caretaker. He shows us this newspaper article, and it has a picture of the house. And when the photo was developed, there was a woman peeking out the window of the house. He's saying, this was taken, that there was no one in the house. And The reason it was in the newspapers, when the photo was developed, this woman just showed up. I said, I saw the woman from the picture in the room. And he said, that's where a husband murdered his wife and he strangled her. And then hanged himself. And that's the room that she died in. Wow, like, I mean, it was unbelievable. So I think that this was the ghost just saying, listen, we've had enough, stop bothering us. Because we'd been so transfixed on this house. I think that that was the ghost finally saying, enough. I kind of took that as, all right, I'm leaving you alone, you know? I've not had any experiences like that since. I'm not sure that I would want to. I think that was enough of playing with the paranormal for me.
Celebrity ghost stories.
I open the door, and there's nobody there. And my husband goes and gets the rifle. I went, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. Oh no! It scared me to death. If they have that much power, then what else are they gonna be doing?
I heard this blood-curdling scream. It was my daughter. And she said, Mom, I saw this very tall, white, ghostish woman standing above my bed when I woke up. I didn't know what to do. I absolutely panicked.
In that moment, I just feel shivers all through my body. I just want to get out of the room. I start hearing some noises coming from under my bed. And there was no way I was gonna look under the bed. I wasn't gonna get out of the bed. I wasn't gonna move. I'm scared to death.
It just was the dream house for both of us. It was perfect for us. And it was just so hard to accept that this was being taken away from us. We had intruders that we couldn't just, sit down with them and go, you know what, you're not welcome in this house anymore. But how do you talk to something you can't see physically? When my husband, Stephen, and I moved to Palmdale, California, it was wonderful. It was just a lovely, lovely home. It's a beautiful area. It's secluded on 20 acres. We took hikes all the time. It was just a lot of fun. So one day, we came across a mine shaft. And it had been pretty thrashed. And my husband decided to go inside it. Of course, I wouldn't go inside it because I was so old, I didn't want to chance it because it could have fallen apart or whatever. And I was watching him go in there, crawl in there, and he was looking around and everything. He says, "You're never gonna believe what I found." He said he found a penny for gold. So, and it was old. And we took it back to the home and put it in my pantry, along with what we had gathered hiking at other times, so all the crystals and all the beautiful rocks that we would find. Soon after that, my husband and I, we're sitting in the living room. And all of a sudden, we hear footsteps coming down the front porch. I got up, you know, to answer the door. I open the door, and there's nobody there. I looked at my husband, and I said, honey, there's nobody there. Okay, well, no big deal. Maybe we're just hearing something. I mean, we have woodpeckers and birds and squirrels. Then it happens again, but this time there's voices along with it. So now I run to the door, I open the door, and I don't see anyone there. I run down the porch, get to the driveway to see if I could catch whoever it was. I'm watching to see if I see any car or anybody running. Nobody, nothing. There was no denying the voices along with the footsteps this time.
Maybe they got away that quick.
And my husband says, well, maybe they got away that quick. And I'm going, no, they couldn't. There's no way they could. I got scared. And this is just the beginning of all these occurrences. A few weeks go by, and one night, my husband and I went to the market and came home. We start hearing voices and footsteps. And we're like, okay, no. So he goes and gets the rifle. He says, you stay here, Erin. And I said, okay, I'll stay here. And I'm freaking out. I'm shaking, I'm scared. There's no way around it. There's someone in the back room. He goes with the rifle, and he goes to open the door. And he goes in. There's closets right there. And he's walking towards the closet. And there's nobody there, and he slides the other one back. Now we're hearing footsteps and voices within the house. It's so darn scary. And I proceed to call the police. Squad cars showed up, and they came in the house. They went through every room and the closets. They couldn't find any evidence or anything. So that ends that. A few weeks later, I was in the bedroom. And I thought I was hearing a woman's voice. A few weeks later, I was in the bedroom. And I thought I was hearing a woman's voice. And you see my eyes? I went, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. I am really hearing a woman's voice. And it didn't sound like it was coming from another room. It sounded like it was coming from here to here. It was mumbled at first, but it was definitely a woman's voice. And I couldn't make out what she was saying.
Stephen, get in here! Get in here!
So I yelled at my husband. I said, Stephen, get in here, get in here. My husband said, you've got to be kidding me. And we're both, listening, just trying to make out what she was saying. But then it progressed. We could understand the words. She had in her voice this emergency. You have to help my daughter. You have to help my daughter. I don't know what to do about her. Then it became more urgent. You have to help my daughter. You have to help her. I don't know what to do. This is really freaky because now there was also this man's voice and it was muffled. Couldn't ever distinguish the words or what he was saying. Okay, now there's two. Now we're gonna have a whole gang starting to happen here? So, just to get away from this madness, we went to a hotel and said, what are we gonna do about this? Then it was like, well, I guess we're just gonna have to put up with this because I'm not leaving. So we got back and days went by, and then weeks, and then months. And it didn't hear the voices anymore. And we said, oh, good, it's over. No, it wasn't. It wasn't over. We were in bed one night, and I was laying on my back, and I'm laying there, and my eyes are closed. I was just about to fall asleep, and all of a sudden, we hear the man's voice say, I'm gonna count. I'm gonna count to 10. And all of a sudden, he starts counting. 1, 2, 3.
6.
Now, mind you, I'm sitting there scared to death because what's gonna happen when he gets to 10? And I couldn't breathe.
8, 9, 7.
The canopy comes down on me, and I go, oh no! It scared me to death. If they have that much power to actually move an object and actually could have hurt me, then what else are they gonna be doing that may be worse than that? And I said, okay, that's it, that's it. We're leaving. I'm not doing this anymore. Well, here we go, let's go. My husband and I moved out of that home. After my husband and I had left the home, it never left my mind on all the things that transpired. I found out from a friend of ours who had done some research about the mining shaft, and he says, "You're never gonna believe this." There was a miner in that area. He hung his wife. And then hung himself.
I'm gonna count the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And the daughter, she was left back. Nobody knows what happened to the daughter. I said, "You've got to be kidding me." Something that I thought about in connection with what went on. I was bringing the pan into the home. That's when everything started. That attachment is probably within that pan. And thank goodness we left this pan in the house when we moved. Obviously, the woman, I'm getting all choked up, I'm gonna try not to cry, was having a really hard time about her daughter. This woman and her husband were still just roaming around, not being able to pass on. And you feel so darn helpless, because you want to help, but you're scared at the same time. You know, you just deal with it, and it's gonna be okay.
Years ago, my husband and I tore down one of the most iconic Hollywood mansions. We said it was because of termites. It wasn't the real reason. It was the late 80s, and my husband bought a beautiful palatial mansion for me and my 2 children. And this house was the estate of Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. It was called the Pickfair Estate. We moved into the house, and it was absolutely beautiful. There were several wings in the house. There was a guest wing, there was the master wing, and the children's wing. It was a dream. Everything was perfect. For the first 6 or 8 weeks that we lived in the house, my husband was away. He traveled a great deal. So it was just me and the kids, alone in the new house. And weird things started to happen. The second night that we had slept there, I was lying in bed, and the kids came running in, screaming, sheet white. And they said, Mom, we're hearing these noises. It's like girls laughing, women laughing, and it's like someone's having a party above our wing. They were freaked out. I have never seen my kids like that. They were literally shaking. So we went back to their room. And I would come in, didn't hear anything. I was kind of miffed. I really didn't understand what was going on. I thought maybe the kids were making an excuse to stay up. So I tucked them in again, and they finally fell asleep. The next night, I put the kids to bed and go back to my room, put my head on the pillow, and doze off. And all of a sudden, I put the kids to bed and go back to my room, put my head on the pillow, and doze off. And all of a sudden, I heard this blood-curdling scream. It was my daughter. And she came running into my room, and she was terrified.
I think I saw a ghost.
And she said, "Mom, I saw this very tall, white, ghostish woman standing above my bed when I woke up." And my daughter described this apparition of this woman. She had a white gown on, and she was looking at her and laughing. And she was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. At this point, I hadn't seen anything, and I was concerned that there was something going on with my daughter. She was a very young child. We had just moved into this big new house. Her dad wasn't there. And I thought, well, maybe she's having nightmares. So I took her to see a therapist. And the therapist said she was fine. She was just having some issues adjusting. And psychologically, I think it was good because she felt as though she was being listened to and taken seriously. So if in fact it was all in her mind, then hopefully that would solve the problem. So now I'm thinking she feels better, and I thought, well, maybe things will settle down. So a few nights later, I tuck the kids in, I come into my room, settle in, and I fall asleep. And I wake up, I start to hear breathing. And I lay there with my eyes closed thinking, oh my God, I'm really afraid to open them. Something is weird here. My heart is pounding out of my chest, and I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm the only one in this house with the kids. And then I heard the noise of a woman laughing. So slowly, I open my eyes, and I see the apparition that my daughter described. This very tall woman with sunken eyes and a white 20s gown on, standing above me. I absolutely panicked. And I screamed, and the woman disappeared. At that point, I realized the kids were not crazy. They weren't having nightmares. They weren't making up stories. There was something really weird going on in this house. So I looked up the history of the house. In the 1920s, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks were the king and queen of Hollywood. When they married, it was like a royal wedding. And at the height of their careers, they built this house. Now, Mary Pickford turned this home into the center of the Hollywood social scene. They were partying every night. Everybody would come there. Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, Albert Einstein. Clearly, a lot of things happened in that house. People drank there. People partied there. Douglas Fairbanks had a history of womanizing during his marriage to Mary Pickford. This woman that Douglas Fairbanks was keeping on the side partied there. And died there. So I knew at that point we couldn't really stay in the house in the state that it was in. We brought in a priest for an exorcism. He was saying his prayers, bowing his head, and giving us the sense that everything was fine, that he had taken care of any evil spirits or anything that would cause any problems. And I'm thinking, everything's gonna be fine. But the kids were still scared to sleep alone at that point. So I took them in with me. And we finally fall asleep. Well, I started to hear same noises again. And they were even louder, more robust sounds of the woman laughing. And I looked up. And she's standing above me, laughing. Shoes on. And when we left, we walked out the front door, and I heard laughter behind the door. We got in the car and just drove off, and that was it. We went to the Beverly Hills Hotel. I was besides myself because the problem wasn't solved, and I didn't know what to do at that point. That was very, very devastating because we were in this huge, gorgeous mansion, and we couldn't stay there. So my husband and I, after trying to figure out what to do, decided we were gonna have the house raised. And it was a difficult decision, but, you know, we had to live in it, and we couldn't live in it with what was going on inside of it. Originally, I told people that I was raising the house because of termites. So this is basically the first time I'm coming out publicly and saying that termites weren't the real reason we had to raise Pickford. Now, if I had a choice, I never would have torn down this old home. I loved this home. It had a history. It had a very important sense about it. And you can deal with termites. You can deal with plumbing issues. But you can't deal with the supernatural.
My experience, what happened to me was so jarring, was so scary that it affected me in a lot of ways for a long time after that. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I have a huge family, and my mother is the oldest of 15. I had this one aunt, her name was Marie, and she was very boisterous, exciting, vibrant woman. You know, one of those older women that always wore the same perfume. You always knew when she was around because you could smell her before you even heard her, which is unusual because she was pretty loud as well. Whenever you saw her, she'd always go, "Come give me a hug, come give me a hug." You go over and you go, "Oh, okay." And because you knew that she was gonna grab you and envelop you and just hold you a little bit longer than you wanted to be held. You know? It's one of those things that as you're older, it's a little more endearing, but as a kid, it's a little annoying. She just held you there, and your face was smushed up against her, and the perfume was strong. She was a powerhouse, a force. When I was 8 years old, she passed away. I had never been to a funeral before, and before the funeral, we had the wake. The casket's open, you have to go view the body. And, you know, there's a long line of people waiting to see the body. Everyone is going up and kissing her and holding her and crying and touching her. And it was expected of me to do that. So I'm in line, and the line gets shorter and shorter. And I get more and more worried because I've never seen a dead body. As I get closer, I feel more and more pressure to do what everyone else is doing. And finally, I'm at the body. You smell her perfume because they put it on her. She's lying there like this with her arms crossed, and her eyes are closed. And I'm looking behind me. Everyone in the room is telling me, "Go ahead, give your aunt a hug. You know how much she loves hugs, that's your aunt." But it's not my aunt. It's not the loud, big, strong woman that I know. And I'm looking at her, and I touch her hand right here, and she is very cold. In that moment, I just feel shivers all through my body. Everyone in the room is telling me, "Go ahead, give your aunt a hug. You know how much she loves hugs, that's your aunt." But it's not my aunt. It's not the loud, big, strong woman that I know. And I'm looking at her, I touch her hand right here, and she is very cold. In that moment, I just feel shivers all through my body. And then I just let go, and I just want to get out of the room. I jumped off the stool, and I just ran. And I leave the room, and I'm crying, and it was like nobody saw how frightening it was to me. So we drive home, and I keep thinking about that image. I just keep seeing her body laying there with her arms crossed. No heat, no warmth, no passion, nothing. It's a hard image, especially as an 8-year-old. It's a hard image to be left with. I shared a room with my older brother. We had bunk beds. He's on the top bunk, and I'm on the bottom bunk. That night, I'm laying in bed. I keep thinking about the last lifeless image of her and how scary that was. And all of a sudden, I start hearing some noises, and it's coming from under my bed. And then I hear, "Come give me a hug. It's your aunt." It freaks me out. I think I'm imagining things. I sit up, and then I hear it again. "I'm under the bed." The voice was creepy, it was eerie. It didn't have that warmth, it didn't have that life. I bang on the bunk. I can feel my brother's body up above me, and I'm pushing it and pushing it. Asking him, "Do you hear that?" And he is just completely annoyed with me. And he says, "No, I don't hear anything. Leave me alone. I gotta get some sleep." I didn't know what to do. So I lay back in the bed, and there was no way I was gonna look under the bed. I wasn't gonna get out of the bed. I wasn't gonna move. I start to smell the smell of the perfume of my aunt, and it's strong. But I'm scared to death because of the fact that I think she's gonna drag me under the bed. I finally got the courage to even move, to slowly pull the covers back and inch my way closer and closer to the edge of the bed. And it took everything I had for me to actually hang my head over my bed. I look under the bed. I don't see anything in there. I'm waiting, I'm looking around, and I got the courage to actually put my hand underneath the bed and to feel around. Nothing was there. Smell was gone. I don't hear the voice anymore. Came back up to my bed, laid down, listened, smelled to see if anything else would happen. Nothing. I'm okay. I'm okay. I was able to fall asleep with a feeling of being comfortable. Maybe my aunt saw how frightened I was by the last lifeless image of her and how much it affected me, that she actually came to me in the spirit to help alleviate that image that I had, the last and final image that I had of her. She was reaching out, helping me out, because I needed to be told that it was okay to accept death, to accept the fact that this is what happens. I think because I was able to do that, reach for her, he was able to go away.